Welcome to this week's episode of Coffee with the Journalist, brought to you by OnePitch. The guests on our show include some of the most notable journalists who write about topics including technology, lifestyle and culture, health, science, consumer products, business news, and beauty and wellness. We discuss the types of stories they cover, their thoughts on exclusives and embargoes, their favorite pitches, and how they connect with sources. Head to onepitch.co and look for the video page to learn more about our new video series featuring journalists from the show. Our guest today on Coffee with the Journalist is Max Ufberg from Fast Company. Max is a senior staff editor at Fast Company, covering and managing the tech team. During the episode, Max gives us the scoop on his pitching preferences, why it's better to talk with a reporter or editor before you pitch them, what constitutes embargoed news, and more. Let's hear from Max now.
Welcome, everyone. This is Coffee with a Journalist. You're here because hopefully you want to listen to a journalist talk about their inbox, what they like about pitching, what the future of journalism is going to look like, maybe some book recommendations. We'll see what we get. I'm Beck Bamberger. I started OnePitch because there was a real big need to help publicists get to journalists better, more efficiently, and in a real, true, authentic way. And that's why we created it. It came out of a bit of my agency that I have called BAM, which works with all venture-backed technology companies and occasionally a venture fund here or two. Today with us, very exciting because we don't have editors on here too often. Definitely another level of the inbox that we'll get into in just a second. Max Ufberg, he's the senior staff editor at Fast Company, specializing right now in the tech vertical for Fast Company. So I'm sure we got lots of tech pitches and Bitcoins and things to chat about. Max, so welcome and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, we just saw your cat. He's 18, Alfie, right?
That's right, yeah.
Oh, Alfie, hopefully he'll pop back. Well, we did see him on a Cameo video, so if you want to watch our little video vignettes, you'll see him there. But Max, I like to start with just making sure people know directly from the horse's mouth on when we have reporters here, what the outlets they cover do. How would you describe Fast Company's coverage?
We cover established and emerging tech, the products as well as the major players in the industry. I would say we have a couple sort of core areas of coverage in our tech section. Web3, AI, the gig economy, transportation tech, and sort of productivity tech.
Yes, definitely. To get your job faster and better done. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Which is very much a Fast Company niche, I would say.
Yes, I would agree with that. Great publication. I look at it every day, to tell you the truth. So yes, thanks, Max, for that. Now, your inbox. I know we'll spend some time on this. How is it in your inbox, specifically with pitches?
Specifically with pitches. Well, it's weird now because, I am back to being an editor. So I have a mix of reporter pitches, like freelance writer pitches, and, PR pitches. So probably in total, there are, I would say when I wake up, maybe 70 pitches or
70?
so.
70?
Yeah, 60 to 70 pitches.
Your morning is 70 pitches already.
Probably. Now I'm doubting it.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
But I would say, a good number, maybe a majority are sort of generic pitches in a way.
Spammy.
Yeah, a little spammy. They've just clearly been fired off to as many outlets as possible. So, in terms of truly tailored pitches, it's definitely a smaller number, maybe 15 to 20 every morning.
Max, can we talk about the spraying and praying that happens and why it happens? Because I don't understand why it still happens. And do you have any reason why it happens? I don't know why.
I suppose it might work. It never works with me. I don't know. If there's a pitch that's clearly just being sent out to everyone, as an editor, the immediate question is what's going to make us stand out, right? If everyone's getting the same pitch, I probably don't want to publish the same thing everybody else is publishing. It's kind of, not a great use of time. There are exceptions, if you get a pitch with some, let's just say some sort of embargoed news about, a huge tech company, we might have to cover it. that's where, our job is to figure out how we can make our coverage distinct from the others in some way. But yeah, I mean, generally, I would strongly suggest a more curated and tailored approach to pitching.
No spraying and praying. Don't be in those 40-ish pitches that are clear spraying and praying. I had to get into that because it boggles the mind. It boggles the mind how that can be effective. I don't know anyone who's ever been on here has ever said, yes, I responded to one of those. Oh my gosh, it was great. No, it's never worked. I just wonder. And I'm wondering, like, who tells people to do that?
Right. I don't know. I mean, I suppose like maybe, I don't know. I don't know.
Who knows? It just boggles the mind, as we would say. Okay. So since you are an editor, though, do you also get pitches for like freelancers or pitches even from your own staff saying, hey, Max, I want to do this? Or is that happen somewhere else?
No, yeah, that happens all the time. Freelancer pitches are certainly, a sort of a big part of the day. And, the sort of challenge there, which is a fun one, is figuring out how to kind of do a little bit of what I would call pre-editing. So like talking with the writer beforehand to kind of make sure they're on the right track and not sort of send someone into a story blind. Because, as the years have gone by and editing more, it seems like it's always helpful to have that kind of table setting conversation, especially with a writer, maybe you don't have a working relationship with.
Yeah. Yeah. Make sure everyone's on the same page so more time is not being wasted, perhaps. Okay. I believe you sent this to Jared, and maybe I'm confusing you with someone else that we have lined up, but didn't you pick out some really good subject lines that you were going to share with us?
Oh, I think yeah.
You did. Okay. It was you, Max. I knew it. Okay. So we did want to hear, especially the best, or you heard, a real live one. Like, what were subject lines that you were like, I got to open that email? And you can maybe look right now in your inbox and tell us what you see.
Well, so of the 3 I sent you, one that I think jumps out, because it's sort of the most obvious in a way, but sometimes like you can't overthink things. So I got an email that basically said like it was pitching a conversation with Matthew McConaughey. I don't know if that's the one you're referring to, but
I don't know, but that one sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, I was just sort of like, why wouldn't we have a Q&A with Matthew McConaughey? And that's one of the few stories I actually wound up writing myself at Fast Company, just because it was, because I just really wanted to, but also because
you're like, oh darn, no one else can write it. Guess it's going to be me.
Yeah, and I think it just shows like sometimes the subject line, if you have a splashy thing, like people are going to.
Yes. Okay. So celebrity pull, that clearly helps. Got you. What else? We might not have that in the arsenal every day. So
right. I do not get a Matthew McConaughey pitch only one time ever. So what's generally working?
Bummer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wish. I would say anytime there's a good sort of spin on a trend. So, it's not just mentioning a product or company by name, but it's also explaining like how they are doing something to further one of our areas of coverage. So as an example, like...
example, please.
Yeah. So if you're bringing up let's just say a company that does, I'm just making this up, but AI with pet care or something, given that we were talking about my cat, it's helpful to not just talk about the raise round or something like that in the head or in the subject line, but to instead kind of talk about what it actually does. I get a lot of pitches that just talk about whatever valuation or whatever raise a company just did. And like, there's just so much money going around constantly. It's not necessarily that interesting,
It's not. And we talk about this all the time in BAM. It's no longer, they raised $20 million from so-and-so, and so-and-so said, this is really exciting. No one wants that story anymore. I think that could have worked maybe 10 years ago. So it needs to be like, why does it matter? What's important? What's going on with it? How is it tied to the greater society? Or something.
Yeah, which is a tall task. Like that's hard to get into a subject line, but that tends to be the most effective way of pitching, I find.
So you just mentioned the funding rounds and you are on the tech beat, Max. Do you take exclusives, embargoes, any of the sorts?
We do take both. I mean, I'm always, trying to nudge reporters toward getting the exclusives, which is no surprise. Embargoed news, there's a bit of editorial judgment that goes in there. Like if it's the sort of thing where, we make a call that like, if we don't cover it, we're going to appear as if we were kind of caught flat-footed, then we're going to cover the embargoed news. Having said that, a lot of big companies will send embargoed news that's like, kind of like iterative product updates.
Yeah, it's not really embargo on anything. We change the color. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, there's literally stuff like that where it's like, we changed the font and like, we're probably not going to cover that. But, I mean, certainly it helps with anything to be offered the exclusive. I mean, there have been many instances where, someone will come and say, we have this under embargo, and we'll say like, we'll request the exclusive. And, that works sometimes.
Oh, so if you see something, I'm sure it's rare, and you're like, oh, that's under embargo. But wait a second, can't we just have the exclusive? You'll ask for that? I have not heard of this before.
We have asked for it, and
sometimes it works. Oh, it usually doesn't. Yeah.
Probably usually doesn't work, but it's worth asking.
You can try. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay. And you get interesting.
Today's interview will continue after this brief message brought to you by OnePitch. Are you curious to see the unique ways OnePitch helps PR professionals and marketers pitch journalists? Head to onepitch.co to learn about our new OnePitch score and see how easy it is to find the right journalist to pitch your news to. Sign up for your free account today. Now, back to today's episode.
What, like this Matthew McConaughey piece, which, by the way, is a recent piece for everyone listening. Like, you can click on this piece pretty quickly here. I also like the Austin tie, Max, because you're in Austin. Very good win there. Very good. What is the making of a great story to you? Does it ever come from a pitch? Does it come from a walk that you're doing by the river over there in Austin? Are you thinking about it in the shower and you're like, you know what? I really would like X. How does that come to be?
Yeah, it usually doesn't come from a pitch. I mean, I find we get plenty of good stories, from pitches, but they're usually like fairly straightforward. It's like a company or a person did X. They're not necessarily like too multi-layered. A great story to me, which is, usually a bit more multifaceted and probably a little bit more kind of wide in scope, that comes from, kind of like you said, like just chewing on something, and also having reporters who are really, well versed in their subject areas, which, I think we have that luxury at Fast Company. So often it's one of our writers or, a freelance writer saying, I've been covering this for however many years, and I can tell you that this is an interesting angle on something that no one's talked about. Or here's better maybe is like, here's a scoop within this industry.
Oh, yes, a scoop. We love a scoop.
We do.
Let me ask you, so do you all get together every day on Slack? What do you do all for your reporters to understand what the beat, what the level of stories is going to look like?
We don't get together every day on like a formal call. We do have we have regularly scheduled calls, but we do all talk on Slack every day. And it varies kind of with each writer, but generally there's kind of like maybe it's weekly or even more frequent than that, but there's like a quick update on what the person's working on or what's developing that, is particularly interesting. I mean, there are kind of, broadly speaking, two types of stories, I would say, that, we work on, which is the news/analysis. So that could be the exclusive news, or if it's like, let's just say there's some update with Elon and Twitter where we're probably not going to get like some kind of exclusive there. We need like a contextual scoop, so to speak.
Yeah.
We have to figure, right, like what do we have to say? So that's like one bucket. And then the other I would say is just the enterprise type reporting, a little bit more kind of shoe leather and often takes longer to put together.
The shoe leather. Yes.
So we're kind of keeping tabs on both of those, both those avenues.
Got it. Okay. So that does happen. Okay. So it's happening on Slack. You have these meetings. Okay. I always think about like, what's the newsroom like these days? Because you're not in a newsroom, really. Except actually, well, no, you're not in Austin going to a newsroom. Is the team going back, some of them, to at least the New York office at all?
Yeah.
Are there any souls in there?
There are souls in there. Yeah, we've got quite a few people in the New York office. I mean, the tech team is kind of weird because we're kind of spread out through the country, really. So we've got, 2 people in San Francisco, someone in in New York, I'm in Texas, and then we have, a network of columnists and contributors who are really all over the US. So getting everybody together on a time zone, on, one time zone is a fun challenge. But I think it helps with tech because there are so many emerging industries and interesting companies that are popping up outside of, New York and San Francisco. So it helps to have like a foot in all these different.
Oh, that's a good question. We haven't looked into that before. I think this is an unusual one because we don't always have like a tech person necessarily on here. How do you accommodate for that? Because, for example, I was talking with the VC today who's in Israel. And then I have another one later today. She's in France. Now I know Fast Company is mostly for like US type of stuff, but how do you address this situation when tech is now emerging everywhere, not in the New York SF landscapes that I think have been the 10 years ago narrative?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's challenging. I mean, right now I'm working with a reporter in Nigeria. I'm working with a reporter in Buffalo, much closer, but also very much in New York City or San Francisco. I mean, people really all over. And yeah, I mean, I think the key with those stories is to make sure they are, there's like the reporter has access to the relevant characters because they're there, but it has to still be sort of national or even international in focus. So, it's just making sure that those pieces are very clearly positioned as being relevant to everyone, which is honestly, as you said, like given that the landscape's kind of shifted so much, it's not really too much of a challenge.
No, I was going to say, yep. Wow. Okay. Oh, it's hard to keep up with all the tech things. I know. Max, besides having a fun time with your cat and moving to Austin, which you are in the midst of, what are you reading, writing? Well, obviously not writing, watching, listening to. We just like to hear, what other stories do you like as a journalist?
Okay. I'm watching Better Call Saul.
How is that? I've never watched that. Isn't that sad?
It's really good.
Is it?
Yeah. My wife was a Better Call Saul evangelist, and she
finally converted you?
Yeah. I mean, I liked Breaking Bad, but I never got into it. But I never got into Better Call Saul, but it's really good.
Both are on HBO, right?
No, it's on Netflix.
Oh, it's on Netflix. Oh, it must be in my queue. I've got, like 17 things on each channel that still is at one point in time going to happen. Yeah. Okay, great. So that's an old school throwback a little bit. Great. Anything else?
Let's see. What am I reading?
If you are.
I am. Actually, I've already read this book, but I picked it back up again to scan through it. It's called Say Nothing by Patrick Radden Keefe. It's actually a book about the Troubles in Northern Ireland. Oh, yes. With this harrowing photo on the cover of this man. Oh, yes. This is on my list. It's a true story of the murder, right? Yes.
Of a murder. Yes.
It's an incredible book.
Some good true crime, right?
Yeah, it's really good. I just watched a movie, Belfast. So that kind of,
Oh, it won Best Nonfiction Book of the Year, Time Magazine. Oh, downloading right now. Great.
Yeah, it's a really, really good book.
Awesome. Wow. Good. See, this is my favorite part of this podcast, getting all the tips and the insights from our journalists, people who obviously are experts in stories, because that's all you do all day. That's fantastic. Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to mention in this realm? Even trash. We'll even take
Trash. Okay.
Just because we want to know.
Oh, well, because we're in the process of moving, we've been watching like house hunting TV.
And any that you like?
Yes. What is it called? I can't remember the name. I can look it up and let you know.
Okay, let us know. We'll put it maybe in the show notes. Because I'm sure people will want to know. We love to know. Okay, Max, you have spent some time being in journalism. You were at Wired before. You were at Medium. You're now at Fast Company. You've been around the bend a little bit, beat around the bush. Around the bend, I'm getting my phrases messed up. Okay. What do you think the future of journalism looks like?
Oh, God, I don't know.
I know. It's a big one. It's a big loaded question for the end.
That is a loaded question. I think we will see probably among the major outlets, more consolidation and, kind of like you saw the acquisition of The Athletic by the New York Times. Like, I think you'll see more things like that. At the same time, I imagine we'll continue to see a lot of regional nonprofits pop up. And those have been doing some really, really excellent work, and they're kind of smaller newsrooms, often kind of helmed by often newspaper veterans. I feel like that is probably I'm way out of my depth here, but I would suspect that's kind of like the future of local news.
Yeah, like community generated, but community supported nonprofit type of stuff, which I think is a shame, but I don't know how we get out of this.
Yeah, me neither.
That's the problem, the conundrum. Any other thoughts on that? Max, what would you say, for example, to a journalism major right now?
To a journalism major?
Yes, who's like, I want to be a journalist. Max?
I would say, that's a tough question. I guess I would just say, if you're able to kind of move around for work, I would suggest going to a smaller market publication to start. I started in newspapers. I worked for the Virgin Islands Daily News, which was pretty, it was a cool gig because I lived on St. Thomas. But I think, going to a smaller place like that often gives you more opportunity to kind of try a little bit of everything, versus I think like the sort of more established internship fellowship track of just like the major New York outlets. I think if you can start small, you might be able to kind of make a bigger splash.
So start small is what you would say.
That was a long-winded answer saying start small. Yeah.
Yeah, start small. You have to start. It's kind of, I feel like journalism, and I was in TV, you start at the bottom, there's definitely some paying of dues to get going on, and that's what you got to do. And over time, you make a career, if you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky. And, if you're at a smaller outlet, they're probably just, at least in my experience, they're going to give you more opportunity to do work that will ultimately produce clips that you're proud of and can use.
Max, thank you so much for being on with us today and calling in from Austin and bringing on your cat. He made it. I'm so proud of him. And look at you, also making it over there. And I love it. No one should call you Mark ever again, just because now everyone's listened to this podcast here. So we got that cleared out. And thanks for being here. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you so much. Everyone, this is Coffee with the Journalist. Please pitch your journalist correctly and definitely spell their name right. Thank you all. Thanks, Max.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Coffee with the Journalist featuring Max Ufberg from Fast Company. Make sure to subscribe for new episode updates on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. And if you have a moment, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts to share your thoughts about the show and today's guest. To learn more about the latest tools on OnePitch and to subscribe to our weekly podcast newsletter, head to our website at onepitch.co. We'll see you all next week with even more insights about the journalists you want to learn more about. Until then, start great stories.